We just live right now, man. It's going down, excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
Hello and welcome to episode 191 of Dear Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast. I am Kyle Carr. I will be your host today. Still no Riley Feldman. He is on the path of recovery, but I do have Adam Paris joining us. Adam, how's it going?
It's going really well, Kyle. I'm glad to be joining you, and especially at a good time for the Bucks too. I feel like the vibes are good right now, so I'm excited to hop on this with you.
Yeah, it's been a good couple of weeks. You know, they had a little bit of a hiccup losing 2 games in a row against the Hawks and the Celtics, but then they got to Sunday, beat the Nets, and this week was all about the NBA Cup because of their victory against the Detroit Pistons on Tuesday the 3rd. That gave them a quarterfinal matchup at home in Pfizer Forum against the Orlando Magic, where Milwaukee was victorious, 114-109. It was a little bit stressful. Jalen Suggs was absolutely torching them, but game time came in the clutch when they needed it. And then on Saturday, Milwaukee had the NBA Cup semifinal. They went back to Vegas. They were there last year and lost to the Indiana Pacers. This time, they went and beat the Atlanta Hawks 110-102. So Milwaukee will play the Oklahoma City Thunder on Tuesday, December 17th, 7:30 Central Time. Oklahoma City had beaten the Houston Rockets in the Western Conference semifinal match. So overall, a pretty good week. You know, you can't complain when you're playing for a trophy. There's debate about, you know, does this really matter? Does this not matter? But at the end of the day, it's still a chance for a trophy, and Milwaukee is going to win it. They even said in a recent interview before the Atlanta Hawks game through ESPN that despite the start, the NBA Cup allowed them to kind of treat it like it was the playoffs. So they use that kind of to get the ship right in. It so far has worked. And now Milwaukee has gotten further than they did last year. And this time they're going to hope to win the whole thing. But we'll just go right into it. Adam, what did you learn from this past week or 2 weeks, if you want to include the week prior, since we did not record?
I don't want to talk about the week prior. I feel like I want to talk about probably mostly the Hawks game. I felt like the Magic game was quite frustrating, and it was hard to take a whole lot from it given the Magic didn't even have Banchero and Wagner. So then it was like, okay, well, there's not really any upside to even the Bucks winning, and thank goodness that Dame came through in the end. But I thought the Hawks win might have been maybe the most encouraging win of the year for me so far. I know that the Houston win is probably up there too, but I feel like so there's the team is starting to stack some of these wins against teams that I feel like could pretty easily attack weaknesses of theirs. So like the Hawks, for example, have been one of the best teams at forcing turnovers this year. And the Bucks, you know, they're not awful at turning the ball over, but they kind of go back and forth. Some games it's infuriating. Some games they're not. They're ranked like 10th in the league in terms of turnover percentage, but they did not turn the ball over against the Hawks. And then the Hawks also have like almost a 30, I'm on clean the glass, 31% offensive rebound rate for the season so far. And the Bucks held them to half of that. And that has been a big issue too. So I feel like these are the kind of wins that are really encouraging for me because it kind of shows that, okay, when it is time or we feel like the Bucks really want to turn it on, you know, they're able to do it. And it's not just them letting a younger team run roughshod all over them, which is what I was pretty anxious about. And when you just looked like I hadn't watched much of the Hawks this year. When you just look at them, they look like an uber athletic team with tons of 6'7" wings besides Trae Young. And so I was nervous that they were just going to be able to run all over us and take advantage of us. But I thought in transition, the Bucks held up pretty well. On the glass, they held up pretty well, and they didn't turn the ball over. So I thought that was really encouraging, given those have been so many issues that have plagued the team so far this year.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, when they played Atlanta the last time, and there was kind of like, and I mentioned it in the preview, but there was kind of a tough caveat because when Milwaukee played Atlanta, that was the day after they had played the Pistons in that NBA Cup game. So
Mm.
there was kind of that feeling of, were there dead legs? Did they kind of like realize like, okay, like we went for the thing we wanted to win. Like we went for the game we wanted to win, and this game is kind of like a throwaway. We don't care as much kind of thing. And I think it showed because when they played Atlanta the first time, Atlanta has a lot of dynamic wing players. Like they have Trae Young who can, his ability to hit floaters and still be able to shoot, but still pass, like definitely puts Milwaukee in a tough situation. But they have Jalen Johnson, and yes, he was recovering from an injury, but he is still very talented. Dyson Daniels, DeAndre Hunter, Bogdan Bogdanovic, like all of them they have enough wing players that not only can swarm Milwaukee's offense and kind of cause them frustration, but have enough firepower as well. And it kind of showed the first time these two teams played where Atlanta outscored Milwaukee 30-12 on the fast break. And then with their offensive rebounding, I think that also gives them that edge because when they played Milwaukee as well, for points in the paint, it was 64-34 in Atlanta's favor. So it was quite a stark difference in terms of just like what I think Milwaukee is more used to in terms of like how they play and who they play against. When they're trying to decide like, okay, do we stack up against a Boston? Boston's a jump shooting team. That is a jump shooting team who can occasionally mix. When you think about the New York Knicks, that is a team that kind of runs through Jalen Brunson, but Karl-Anthony Towns is playing really well, but Karl-Anthony Towns is not someone that you would really consider kind of like a post threat. When you look at Cleveland, it's still Donovan Mitchell, it's Darius Garland. So there's not a lot of teams that truly attack Milwaukee in the paint the same way that Atlanta does, which is kind of through those second chance points. But yesterday, I mentioned like the two stats, and it was a complete shift this time. It was even in points in the paint. So each team had 42 points in the paint. And then for fast break points, Milwaukee actually beat Atlanta in that instance, 23-15. You mentioned the turnovers, and yeah, Milwaukee did not commit that many turnovers until the final few minutes, where Khris Middleton was kind of the sole problem with that. It was like 3 or 4 turnovers in the last 5 minutes of the game. But overall, it was a very controlled performance by Milwaukee. And I agree with you. I think it was just like they were just smarter. They were able to pick their passes. There wasn't, as like I said, barring those last 5 minutes, they really were careful with the ball, and that prevented Atlanta from going on those, fast break opportunities.
Yeah, and I think, I think, them approaching it intelligently is correctly. Some of it also maybe could have been they have 3 days off before that game too. I mean, that won't always be the case. So maybe some of that helped with some of the effort stuff. But I do think, just thinking about how they approached the game, they really did seem to come at it tactfully. And I did think they did a great job inside. I know there was, I actually thought the broadcast was probably one of the best broadcasts I can remember in terms of letting you hear what a coach is telling his players. Like, I thought they did a good job of letting us actually hear what the coaches are saying. Like, really good Quinn Snyder stuff. I can't remember all of it, but then there was kind of a point in the fourth quarter where it was like Doc saying, you guys are just letting them drive past you. You need to get square with all of them repeatedly. Otherwise, they're just going to keep getting into the paint over and over. And then the Hawks had been going on a run. And I thought the Bucks did a pretty decent job in the paint regardless. Like Brooke and Giannis did a decent job. But I thought that was really insightful just to kind of see inside what what Doc was telling him, what he wanted from them. But, they really did do a good job. I thought outside of Trae Young getting some sort of his kind of BS going and drawing a ton of fouls and all of that kind of stuff, I thought they did a pretty good job locking up the rest of the offensive players for the Hawks, given how much dynamism they can carry. And I think, like you said, maybe that isn't much an issue for other people, but having this team be a bunch of Matador defenders is kind of a fear I've had for a lot of the season. So I think that was really encouraging to see them kind of lock up like that and not just allow penetration after penetration.
Yeah, and we kind of saw it at the end, like Milwaukee's defense in the fourth quarter in particular. Even if they did get like Atlanta got past the perimeter defender, you still had Giannis and Brooke altering the shots, and it kind of forced Atlanta to really become more of a jump shooting team. Like that, I think that's really what helped Milwaukee is they forced the Hawks to just take a bunch of threes and just take a lot of pull-up jumpers. Some of them were open, but overall, like you look at it, it was like defensively, they really made sure where they're not going to get beat easily. And I think what was huge was there wasn't that overcompensate from the help side defenders or doubling. And I think that was huge because I think, like I said, it forced Atlanta to really just take more jump shots. And then once that happened and Atlanta wasn't making shots, then it allowed Milwaukee to kind of slow things down. Eventually, they were getting to the free throw. They were getting the free throws, give the ball to Giannis. So I think there was that luxury as well. And I think that was something that we also saw in the Orlando Magic game. I mean, the Magic played really, really well considering the injuries, but there were a lot of times where Jalen Suggs just couldn't miss. And when that happened, you kind of just put your hands up and be like, all right, well, is what it is. But this go around, it felt as though the Bucks kind of decided if they're going to beat us, it's going to be because you hit a barrage of threes, and we're still going to contest them. But we're going to force you to take a lot tougher shot than being able to just let Trae Young get floaters. And even though there's a lot of fouling in the fourth quarter, Milwaukee still were very aggressive. And I think a lot of that was, Andre Jackson, like there was different players. Andre Jackson Jr. was on Trae Young for a good chunk of the game. Gary Trent Jr. defensively was able to do things. AJ Green, and he kind of saw in that aggressiveness with the fouling, and AJ Green eventually fouled out. But I think that helped as well, as forcing Atlanta to take those tough shots. And then they were rebounding. As you mentioned, Atlanta's rebounding is really good. So when they were getting the rebounds at the end, I was like, who is this team?
I know. I was really surprised by, some of the players who were skying for rebounds. So I thought that was a credit to them. What did you think? Is Khris Middleton going to be in your what you learned, or should we touch on him now? Because we haven't really talked about him.
No, he's not going to be in my what we learned, but yeah, he did not have a good game.
No, it wasn't great. I mean, it's been really interesting to watch him come back. I mean, he's been as quiet offensively from a scoring output these past few games as any stretch I can remember. Even when he came back last year, I felt like he was at least providing some scoring output. But it's been like a really, I think, kind of interesting start to his return from the injury.
Yeah, and now we're at like 8 days. So it's been, about a week and about 4 or 5 games. Yeah, it just felt like he wasn't as aggressive. And part of that was, when you have, Giannis and Dame being able to kind of dictate things, and Khris is kind of more relegated to that third option. Mm-hmm. That's part of it. But, he just between, like I said, the passing, he had a couple pretty bad turnovers. Like one of them was not completely his fault, but there was he tried lobbing it to Giannis. He just threw it right into, I think it was Dyson Daniels. There was the inbound that he threw all the way in the corner to Gary Trent Jr. And I guess Jack mentioned in his post game that Khris said, at least if it goes out, it's not a live ball turnover. It's all right, well, how about we just don't have a turnover? And this was right after he called a timeout the first time. He was only 2 of 7 from the field. I mean, some of the looks that he had were good looks. So it's not as though, he's forcing shots that he shouldn't. So I think I'm curious because he's still getting up to speed. And yes, normally he does come back and we kind of see him be able to hit the ground running. But I think right now, it was a much longer layoff. If you really think about it, he went from April, he went 8 months really without playing much basketball. So it's going to take a lot longer for him to get back into that aspect. There's a little bit, it's a different personnel than, when we saw from Milwaukee last year. Yes, he's played with Andre Jackson Jr., but, it wasn't as though he was playing consistently with Andre Jackson Jr. and AJ Green. And then you have, Taurean Prince and Gary Trent Jr. as well. So there's not the usual wing guys. There isn't the Pat Connaughton. Bobby Portis didn't, he played, but he didn't play as much. Pat Connaughton didn't play at all. You don't have Jay Crowder making you look better. So there is that, but I think Khris will be okay. I think this is the nice part is we don't need him to kind of be it's not like before Dame where it's all right, if it's Giannis and we got to hope that Khris can show up. Now it's kind of you got Giannis, you got Dame. If Khris can show up, that's great, but you still have, Gary Trent Jr. and AJ Green and Bobby Portis where if they can get going offensively, that can still help Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is kind of from a scoring standpoint. You have some guys that are able to stem the tide if they're not going to be able to, if they just need a few buckets for a little bit. And that, especially when this is a game that Doc was clearly playing a smaller Well, I don't know. He went 9 deep, so I guess he didn't go full, 8-man playoff lineup. But it's nice to have. I think there was that stretch where AJ Green hit like 2 or 3 threes, and it's nice to just have that infusion of scoring and feel like he's going to be able to get off shot. I mean, I think that's probably the thing I like most about AJ Green is that he's going to be willing to take shots, even if it's difficult shots. It's not going to be kind of like teams can't even really run him off the line. Like he can do stuff from really crazy angles in a way that I think some of the Bucks pass sharpshooters wouldn't. Like I don't think oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the Duke guy who beat Wisconsin. Why can I not remember his
Grayson
name?
Allen.
Thank you. I can't believe I blanked on his
We
name.
we
Sorry,
intentionally
Grayson.
did that.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
We're so bitter.
God, that was so bad. But I mean, from an offensive structure standpoint, I do think Khris has been incredibly helpful just insofar as when Dame is out or like it gives when it's just one of Giannis or Dame on the floor, it gives another player who can actually like run a functional pick and roll, right? Like before, our best option for that has kind of been Pat Connaughton by default, which is really depressing. And I'm as big a Pat guy as there is, and I think that's over now, which is really sad. But I mean, it's been nice to have him. And yes, some of his passes have looked very errant, but he's also had some really nice touch passes. You can see him on the lobs to Giannis, and you can see him easily running side pick and roll. So I think just from getting the offense into a specific structure and like kind of organizing everyone, I think it's been really beneficial to have Khris back, even for these small spells, just because it's also doesn't mean that Dame has to bring it up and run a pick and roll every time, or Giannis has to bring it up and just run everything. So I think that part of Khris being back is probably the most beneficial for now until he can hopefully get his shot back.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still the threat of Khris Middleton. Like yes, Khris may not have shot well, but you can't leave someone like him open. Like you have to be able to pay attention to him, or else he does have that capability to beat you just with his shooting. So there is that kind of like aspect of you have to make defenses think as well, because maybe he's not doing well right now, but all Khris needs is one shot to get going. Then what happened? Atlanta knows that as well as anyone. Like Khris Middleton did in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like he alone was being able to like take the game at the end and just like so there is that and that's the thing. Like Khris is still making plays, like the lob to Giannis at the end. That's a vintage Khris Middleton Giannis kind of combo where Khris is able to get that pass to Giannis. Giannis is able to pump fake, get the dunk, puts Milwaukee up by I think like 5. So no, I'm pretty happy. I'm not worried about Khris. Like, I don't think I'm not going to panic about Chris's play until probably February. Then I'll start being like, okay, all right, Khris, like you've had a couple months now. Like, I kind of need something here. Hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We also didn't really talk about, I guess we haven't really talked about Dame or Giannis, but the Giannis block was incredible in that game. I mean, hopefully everyone has seen it, but that was just awesome Giannis stuff.
It was the DeAndre Ayton block in the NBA final. It just felt like that. Obviously, much lower stakes, but it was just kind of that aspect of Giannis being a outside defender. They tried lobbing it. And I also want to give a shout out to Brooke as well, because Brooke was there, being able to kind of alter it. So yeah, that block by Giannis. That's one of those where you just go, man, he's just that good.
That's awesome. I mean, just like what a pleasure to be able to have him. And so I'm so glad it's like in that game too, right? So it has a lot more viewership. It's not just like a random Hawks-Bucks game on a December.
It's not on FanDuel. Yeah, it's not like all of a sudden it's like FanDuel and like you would only see it. Like most of the nation would only see it if they like tune into Sports Center or follow it on whatever social media.
Yeah, exactly. And he was awesome. I mean, attacking the Hawks relentlessly. I thought the Hawks did a pretty decent job. Like I thought Capella and the other people were doing a pretty decent job just deterring him when he got inside, but he still had a great line. I mean, 10 to 15 from the field, 14 rebounds and 9 assists. I just thought, another in control game for him. And I thought that was really impressive, especially given all the length that the Hawks can throw at him.
Yeah. And I also want to give a shout out to Andre Jackson Jr. He only made 1 3, but it was a timely 3. He was completely alone in the corner, so I do want to give a shout out. It's nice seeing that Andre, kind of that PJ Tucker-esque, where it's like, if you're in the corner, shoot that three, and we feel good that he can make it. Also, shout out to Brook. He, it felt like his stat line was kind of low, like 16 points, 3 rebounds. He had 2 blocks, but I think just his presence was able to alter, like I said, alter Atlanta's approach. And I mean, Giannis was 12 of 18 for the free throw line. So overall, I cannot complain. I cannot complain. And that kind of segues into the thing I learned was that it seems like Milwaukee is learning from previous matchups. Like, again, they played Atlanta, and there were some caveats of, the matchup, but it seemed Milwaukee understood we have to make Atlanta, we have to make their lives difficult. We have to make their shots difficult. We cannot let them get into a rhythm, because that's kind of what happened last time. And part of that could just be dead legs, where Milwaukee was with Atlanta until the fourth quarter. Then Atlanta started to get away from it. And in the fourth quarter, it was especially impressive because I think Atlanta had a very good third quarter, and Milwaukee got into the fourth quarter like, okay, this is done. We're not doing this. Like, we're not letting you in this game. I think Frank Madden had posted like the Hawks had like a 99 offensive rating, which for the Bucks to only do that is something we have not seen, consistently. And for other teams, so it was just one of those where you kind of look and you're like, all right, they understood. They made sure Atlanta's not going to do that. Atlanta scored 34 points. We're only going to allow them to score 19 in the fourth quarter. Atlanta kind of gets 28, and it kind of feels like maybe they're going to start pulling away again. Milwaukee turns it around, only lost 21 points. So it was a good team build and team approach. And I think a lot of it is they understood from the last time what they need to do against the Hawks this go around, as opposed to the last time. And like I said, getting better transition defense, battling more for rebounds, battling more points in the paint, because I don't think the Hawks had that many offensive rebounds in this game, which I think that was the thing that kind of really stood out to me.
They only had 7.
Yeah, which for them, that is low. So I think that Milwaukee's just understood from the past and kind of decided to take that approach, understand what went wrong, and with fresher legs, here's how we're going to approach it and attack you.
Yeah, I feel like I think that's a great way to also kind of view the prism through which to view this season. I kind of feel like that's what we've been going through. I mean, the early season was just so awful, and then we've finally kind of gotten back to our equilibrium, right? And then if you look at the numbers now, we're almost top 10 offensive rating, middle of the pack defensive rating. So we're much closer to what I think we were all anticipating with the offensive numbers. Obviously, we're hoping are going to need to be moving up to top 5 territory and all that kind of stuff. And that's full season, right? So it includes all the bad stuff. I'm sure if you just look at since X date, it's pretty good. But I think the team clearly is taking steps slowly but surely, which is kind of an interesting place to be. I know that the team has quite a few new pieces, but it is still kind of a couple core players that have been around for a while and know what they're doing. But that being said, I do feel like every game is still kind of a learning opportunity, whether it's I think Andre Jackson Jr. needs to be in the lineup, needs to be playing because he needs to be there in the playoffs. And I think he's been taking steps and learning from past games too. Like I think he isn't scoring many points, but you saw seems so minute, but in this Atlanta game, like he actually drove on a defender and like tried to do I couldn't believe it, Kyle. I was like, I can't believe he's like making an initiating drive on someone and taking a shot. Like I was flabbergasted to see him try that.
It was just one of those where it's like, wait, that was Andre Jackson Jr. Oh, okay. And especially after he had to basically keep up with Trae Young, and he was kind of the guy that had to like be on him. So the fact that he was still doing all that, but then also throwing in a little something in the mix offensively, it was just like, okay, all right, we can take that.
And that's like what
I know Doc mentioned it as well.
That's what they need him to do, right? And I think he might have like passed out of that, but like that's kind of what he would do in college, right? Like he would kind of drive like a point guard and then like dish out to someone. I think he dished to someone in the corner. Like it has to be somewhere in there. And I think it is slowly but surely coming out, at least in little fits and spurts, his small offensive contributions. Like, we don't need much at all, but there just needs to be these tiny little glimpses so that teams can pay him just a little bit of mind, and he's able to, make a little bit of a little bit of a wrecking ball either on the offensive glass or scoring inside, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully Milwaukee can turn it around. We could talk about the final against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They beat the Houston Rockets 111-96. Oklahoma City's been really, really good. Arguably the best team in the league. They are suffocating defensively. One of the best defenses in the league. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is playing like an MVP candidate again. Even last night against the Rockets, like offensively, they didn't it wasn't like they just shot the ball really well. Like, they were 28-32 for the free throw line. That definitely helps. They had only 4 offensive rebounds, 19 assists. So it wasn't as though they were really battering. It wasn't like a flashy offensive performance, but their defense is so good. And I think Fred VanVleet struggled. Like, he was only like 3 of 15 from the floor. Dylan Brooks struggled. Like, that's kind of been the thing with the Thunder is their defense is really, really good. They allow 19 offensive rebounds, so that could be somewhere where Milwaukee can thrive. But I mean, they're doing all this without Chet Holmgren, who is out hurt. But I think they went like 9 or 10 deep, and they still have Alex Caruso, who we know can be an absolute pest, and he'd even really factor in offensively. But how do you think what does Milwaukee need to do against Oklahoma City to, win on Tuesday to get the NBA Cup?
It's got to be all Giannis, right? Like, they have Hartenstein, and yes, they have, Caruso can be one of those smaller people maybe against Giannis, and they have length, but I think it's almost completely have to go through the brute force of Giannis, or I think also this could be a decent Brook game, like just kind of trying to see him replicate what he just did in this game against the Hawks. Like, yeah, the Hawks had some length, but they aren't huge inside. They don't have 2 guys who are playing on the floor at the same time that are 6'10" like Giannis and 7 foot plus like Brook. So I think you probably got to try and bludgeon them inside as much as possible, just knowing that the perimeter scoring, maybe you'll hit some threes, maybe you won't, but I guess that would probably be my initial inclination, having not watched a lot of OKC, but knowing based on what you said and on the numbers that they're a really good team.
Yeah, I think for me, it's going to be what they did with Trae Young. They're going to have to do again and better with Shai. So like Andre Jackson Jr., AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr., they're really going to have to make things difficult for Shai and make it so that if Chase, scores 30, 40 points, okay, fine. We'll let that happen, but we're not going to let you allow anyone else to beat us. Like, it's going to take just you. And I think the thing that also helps is you don't need to put Dame on him at all, because you could probably put Dame on Carson Wallace, who's their other guard. So that I think and also with like Shai's size, like this is where you will have Andre Jackson Jr. on it. You will have, Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, potentially even Taurean Prince, if in a pinch. So I think that's going to be like the biggest thing for Milwaukee is kind of just do what they did with Trae Young, but you're going to have to do it a step higher. But I do agree with you with Brook, just because, Hartenstein, he has a big body, but Brook can, make with Brook shooting, maybe potentially stretch him out, pull him away from the rim. That can allow Giannis to then do what he needs to inside. Because yes, Jalen Williams and Lou Dort are Aaron Wiggins. Like, those are guys that, can give Giannis issues, but I think Giannis can be able to handle them. And that's where it's kind of like nice where the Thunder don't have Chet, because I feel like Chet would still be able to have that length and speed to keep up with Giannis. He wouldn't have the strength to, but at least then he still has the length and speed to do it. So Brook is going to probably be absolutely needed, especially again, Shai is getting past, Andre Jackson Jr., Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green. Brook is going to be needed as that, final line of defense as well.
I think also they're going to need I know I'm not a huge Bobby Portis fan, but he's been shooting the lights out. He's been a huge offensive spark plug, especially in these games, right, where we talked about where Khris is back, but he's not really scoring in those 22 minutes like you would expect from someone who's playing around that level. So I think they're going to need Bobby again to be a big offensive contributor. And it was interesting. You said they are like one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in the league, but the Bucks are the worst offensive rebounding team. Like they just never go for that.
Like,
So
well,
like they would need
something's
a completely different strategy in this one. Like I swear I just need like one of Andre Jackson Jr.'s offensive rebound attempts to like either he needs to complete a putback or actually grab the offensive rebound and like have it go back up, because I feel like he's had the most attempted offensive rebounds in the league without a successful one. So I just need to see some of that, and hopefully they'll be able to pull it out.
Yeah. It's kind of like, well, one of these has to give. Either Milwaukee needs to figure it out, or Oklahoma City's going to get it. But yeah, we'll try. We'll hope. So
yep.
Yeah. Anything else with the NBA Cup? Are you on the NBA Cup matters? Like, are you on that? Or are you on the it doesn't matter?
I mean, it's bad because I'm like, well, the Bucks are in it and they're the championship, so yeah, it obviously matters. And if they were out, I might be like, it doesn't really matter. But I think I've really enjoyed it from the standpoint of this team. Most of the time, I feel like in the regular season, it's like hard for me to get super excited about the games because I like watching them, but it's kind of been the same team for a long time, and I feel like most of them don't feel that much like they have stakes. And so, anytime a game can feel like it has a bit more stakes, I feel like the team gets up more. I feel like I learn a little bit more about the coaches and their strategy for how they want to approach lineups and whatnot. So, in that way, I've actually quite enjoyed the NBA Cup experience.
Yeah, I was hesitant at first when I heard about it, and then I was like, well, and then they added, point differential being one of the big tiebreakers. Like, okay, so it's going to encourage teams like not just slack off, like you're going to want to win and you're going to want to win big. And I think Milwaukee has approached it as well with, serious intent, and, every NBA, it doesn't feel like, yeah, they're playing Detroit, but, we think it's Detroit, so we're not going to, go for it as much. Or, yeah, you have the Miami Heat. We don't have Giannis. It's kind of like they have taken it. I think that's been nice. Like they're taking it seriously, which means it feels like I'm more willing to like want it to happen. Plus, it's a trophy. Like, this is it's like soccer where they have the country's federation, like the FA Cup in England or the Pokal in Germany or the Copa del Rey in Spain. Like you still want to win it. Like that is still a trophy. That is still something that you can go around and show like at the end of the season, like, hey, we won this. Is it the big championship? No, but it was still something that we competed in. We played all these other teams. We were still the last one standing. So I think there is that aspect of it as well that I've grown to more appreciate. And I think it does help that Milwaukee, this year and last year have gotten, to Vegas. So it's like they've gotten to the Final Four. Now this time it's like you hope they win it. But I've been more in favor of the Cup because I feel like teams are actually approaching it in the manner that they should, as opposed to kind of just viewing it as like whatever. Like if we win, great. If we don't, it's fine. I feel like every team, at least in the beginning, do try. And maybe some teams realize, okay, we're out of it, so we don't care. But I don't think the Bucks have really been in that situation.
Yeah, I agree. I also hope that the Bucks have gotten a little injury luck with the Magic star player being out and Chet being out. I hope that does not mean that we won't get injury luck in the real playoffs. So hopefully we didn't use that all up.
The past 2 years, I think we've been after the last 2 years. No more. The Bucks should be spared.
We deserved it a little. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, but all right. So we are going to shift over to our new well, okay, it's not new. We've done it for like 3 episodes out. We're going to name some guys. So for those that are unfamiliar, we're just going to name a Bucks player from in the past. It could be a role player. It could be someone that actually never played. It could be someone that you didn't even know existed. So I'm going to let Adam go ahead and name his guy.
All right, this one's easy. This is a guy I had a huge crush on, and I expected him to be the wing stopper of the future for the Bucks when he was drafted. It's Damian Inglis. I waited his whole first year. He didn't play, and I could not wait for his debut in his second year. And by God, he was bad. He just didn't even do anything his entire Bucks career. Looked also incredibly unathletic when he was on the floor. I was like fully expecting some of the like Jonathan Givony Draft Express scout stuff was like, this guy is like a premier wing stopper, huge steal. You know, they're jealous of the Bucks getting him. And then he just looked like so plotting, like almost kind of JOB levels of plotting out there, even though he was supposed to be a premier wing defender. So I had huge hopes for him, Kyle. I was like way too high on him, and really depressing to see how badly and quickly he washed out of the league.
And it's funny because he was drafted the same year as Jabari.
Yes,
so you really went from like
difference-making draft.
We were like, all right, this is the key draft that they need. We got Jabari Parker. We got like the number 2 pick. We got this NBA ready guy who's been like a talented prospect. And on offense, he's going to be it. And then it's like, now we got this like diamond in the rough wing stopper. Like, he doesn't need to be the scorer. You have Jabari. You have Khris Middleton. Giannis is still improving. We don't need a guy that can score. We need a guy that can defend. And I really thought at first I was like, oh, he just needs to get up to speed. And I was like, oh, no, he just straight up is not athletic. Like, plotting is putting it nicely. At least with JOB, you looked at JOB and it's like a guy that big. Yeah, he's not going to move that fast.
That's a good point.
But Inglis, it was like, you have no excuse.
Oh, that's so bad. That's like giving me, oh my God. That's like would have been like a dream lineup with those 4. And then like, I don't know, pick your point guard. I guess it would have been Michael Carter-Williams around then.
Yeah.
So that would have been rough.
Wow, that would have been a lineup. Jason Kidd still would have found a way to ruin it. So
100%.
My guy, it's someone that surprisingly you would sit there and be like, guess how many seasons this guy played? It is Charlie Bell.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
Charlie Bell, who came to Milwaukee. This was in the 8th seed or bus at its worst for the Bucks. He played just well enough that Milwaukee was stupid enough to give him a big contract. And it was one of those where looking back, like, yeah, Milwaukee couldn't do anything because they kept paying Charlie Bell way too much goddamn money. And ironically, it still wasn't that high of a salary. It was like, I think at his highest, it was almost just under $4 million. But back then, in the cap space, back in the day, that was still a lot of money to give to someone who, quite frankly, was not that good. Like, when we really look back, he was one of those, we paid money expecting something, and it never turned out. Like, his first season was really, really good. He shot like 42% from 3. He only took 168 attempts, but whatever. The next season, 35. You're like, all right, this isn't bad. But it just felt like he was a guy. And then he was like this. It was just like, as the time went, I was like, oh, you're just clogging up playing time for other guys at this point, and you can't get rid of him. And I was like, he's fine, but for how much you're paying him, we expect more. He played 5 seasons in Milwaukee.
I was gonna say that's how you know it's rough is when he has like almost all of his final years in Milwaukee and then can barely play a full season with another team. Then he's just done for his whole career.
Yeah, it was like by the time it was done in Milwaukee, the next season he went to Golden State. It was just, yeah, it was. He got waived by Golden State the season after because he was part of the Dan Gad's reach, and he was part of that for Corey Maggette.
Oh God. I mean, he played a lot of games for the Bucks. I mean, you know, 60, 82, 68, 70, 71. I guess that's something. Availability is one attribute.
It helped.
God. Charlie Bell's a good pull. I feel like Charlie Bell is, you know, almost could have been like the Pat Connaughton of his day.
He could have.
He's trending towards that way. Yeah. Good pick, Kyle. Charlie Bell.
Yeah.
Classic Buck.
Yep. One of those where it's like, it made sense. You know, at first when you give him the contract, it's like, sure, that makes sense. And then you look back and you're like, they really should not have done that. But, all right. We're going to go to rapid fire questions. I have a couple for Adam. So the first one is going to be, did you currently or growing up, were you like the kind that like joined your family? Like, did your family do like baking cookies, or like, was there kind of like you would spend a day doing something Christmassy?
No, I think the short answer is no. I mean, we have a Christmas Eve tradition of like It's a Wonderful Life and fondue. And then we have like a Christmas breakfast that we make. But I don't think we were ever like, today is cookie day. We never really did that. So no.
Yeah. I was going to say, growing up, we didn't. Now, I mean, I just made like 3 batches of Christmas cutout cookies with my girlfriend. So it's just like, okay, this is a lot of work. Like, it was like 3 or 4 hours from start to finish. But it was kind of one of those where it's like, yeah, that was actually really fun. And I mean, it's also tough because Sterling's birthday is on Christmas. So it's kind of like, all right, I want to do Christmas stuff. But I also have this child that is very much about his birthday. So no, I always just wonder. But yeah, a breakfast would be good. Breakfast would be good. The other question I had is, I was just at a spa, so I have come off the high. Are you someone, like, you go to a spa, are you going to be the kind that goes straight to the hot tub? Are you booking the massage? Or are you just going to a quiet place and just like sitting and reading a book?
I have never had a massage in my life. Do you feel like it is something that is, I feel like it's because every time I have like someone rub my back, I'm like, that hurts so bad. Please stop. So I've like never ever been like, I want to go the extra step and have a massage. So are you telling me do you think that's something I should definitely be doing if I go to a spa? So that I'm turning it back on you because I've never been to a spa either. So I'm asking for your opinion. What would I do?
This was the first time I went to a spa. This wasn't the first time I got a massage, but I would say getting a massage, it's one of those where you don't realize, oh, wow, my back is really bad. Like go in and you can feel them just like getting the knots out. And you're just like, oh. And then you're done. You're like, oh, I feel great. Like I left the massage. Like my back feels good. My neck feels good. Like I feel revitalized. So yes, absolutely get a massage. I'm not a big hot tub person. Like I've come to realize that. Like I'm just like, I'll sit in it for like I'll be in there for like 5-10 minutes. Like, okay, I don't get, like, it's okay, but I don't want to sit in a hot tub. Like that's just not me fully.
I would probably go quiet, read a book if possible, since that is not really something that's present in my life at the moment. So yeah.
All right. Yeah. I was going to say, if you're ever in the Dells, Sundara, it's a great spot. It's expensive, but it's good. The other question I have, this was more of a Bucks question. In the season of the aforementioned Charlie Bell, I mentioned, the first year he shot 42%. Did he ever shoot above 37% in the 4 seasons after?
Wow. You know what's depressing is I was just looking at his basketball reference. I can't even remember. No, I'm going to say no. I don't feel like he got above it.
He did not, unless you really want to round up and cheat. But no, in the second season, 2006-2007, it was 35%. The next season was 34.1. Then it was 36.3, 36.5. So never quite. And this was on somewhere between 3 to 4.5 attempts per game.
Don't you feel like, I wish like back then they just had like the wherewithal to be like, what if we averaged up what he shot before this season in other leagues? In college, and just like tried to see if maybe this wasn't something that was realistic for him to continue shooting this well.
And the tough part is he didn't even play in the 3 years prior to Milwaukee. He was in a whole different place. So it's not even though you can go back and be like, oh yeah, his rookie year he did this. And it's like, no, his rookie year, he was in 2001, 2002, he was part of the Phoenix Suns, and there was like 5 games.
Oh my God.
The next season, he played 2 games for the Dallas Mavericks. So it's not even as though we can go back off of like previous seasons.
That's brutal.
NBA. Yeah, I just had to end it there because I felt like that was a fitting ad.
Yeah.
But now we'll get to I have no film review. I've been watching trashy reality TV shows like The Ultimatum and Hell's Kitchen. So
what is The Ultimatum? I've never heard of that one.
So basically, it's these couples. They go in and one of them issues the other one an ultimatum, like, okay, you got to marry me or we got to break up.
Oh my God.
So one of them makes that ultimatum to the other. So it's like 5 or 6 couples go in. One, and it's like one always gave the ultimatum, one's receiving it. So they go in, then they break up, and they start, and then they date the other people there. So they go and start dating the other people there. You get a week. You figure out who you want to date. then once you decide, like, then they like make a decision. Like they have like this decision day, more or less. Like they sit at a table, say, I choose this person. So then they go with this new person that they are now dating, and they go into a trial marriage and live with the new person for 3 weeks.
What?
So they go in as a trial marriage, do that for 3 weeks. And then after that, they go back to their original partner and do a trial marriage for 3 weeks with them. And then at the end, they go back and like the one that issued the ultimatum has to like, and then like they basically go back and more or less propose. And it's kind of like, so they can either get engaged to the person that they came with. They could fall in love with the person that they were matched with in that first trial marriage, or they could just walk away single. It is the dumbest reality.
Jeez, I'm like, just, oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say, Kyle. That's like one of the craziest things. I just can't believe that's a real thing.
Yep.
Okay.
It's Netflix at its finest.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like if
okay.
you think like Love is Blind or like Married at First Sight is ridiculous, this tops it. This is just like, what the hell?
That's like so insane. I might actually have to check that out. I might actually ask Taylor. I might pitch that to Taylor, and she'll definitely watch that. Okay,
if you want to make fun of, it's good for making fun of people as well. Like if you want to feel good about your relationship and you want to make fun of people, watching that is great because you see some of these people like, why have you been with it? And like these people have been dating like 2-3 years. So at this point, it's kind of like, you guys never talked about getting married. Like this has never been a discussion, and now you're doing this.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. So no, I've been watching that, and I've just been watching old seasons of Hell's Kitchen.
Well, I appreciate that impromptu, maybe not review, but a good description.
Yeah.
Of an absolutely crazy premise.
I honestly sat there. I spent this past week watching basically, and not all the this new season. So I think we're now getting to the point where they have to decide, like, oh, do they want to get engaged or not? So should be fun.
There's some way, if my brain was working better, you, Riley, and I can figure out an ultimatum game with Bucks fringe role players who should be in the rotation for the playoffs. And Doc, we'll figure that out. We'll workshop that.
You know, if Doc has finally decided to more or less do his 8-man rotation for us, we can do that as a backup.
Yes, yeah.
But we're gonna go into the final part. We're gonna try and predict the week this upcoming week. So Tuesday, as I mentioned, they play the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA Cup final. And then Friday, they go to Cleveland and face the Cavaliers and then turn right back around, head to Milwaukee and play the Washington Wizards on Saturday. So, Adam, I'm going to put it as like a two-parter. Do you think Milwaukee will beat Oklahoma City Thunder? And what is your prediction for the rest of the week?
I do think they'll beat the Thunder. And then I think they'll go 1-1 the rest of the week. Probably losing to Cleveland, but I don't know. My head is telling me 1-2, Kyle, but my heart is telling me at least 2-1 this week, and I feel like that's where I'm struggling.
I'm going with they'll win on Tuesday. I feel like I just can't pick against them at this point. They're in the final. Like I gotta pick them to win. So I have that. I think they beat Cleveland. No. It's just the fact that it's Wizards. I'm like, I can't really see them doing that. Because Milwaukee plays good teams really well. It's just the problem is, I don't think. Am I really gonna? You know what? Maybe they'll go 3-0 this week.
Oh, okay. I like that. Even better.
Like I just cannot sit here and expect them to lose to the Wizards. Like I don't care if it's on a back-to-back. Like it's the Wizards.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I couldn't go there either.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say 3-0. We're gonna have a great week, and when we come back, we'll make sure to recap all of it. But you can also go to brewhoop.com. We have our previews. We have the game threads, rapid recap, extended recap, Monday morning media roundup, the Tuesday tracker. I swear I'm going to do the weekly Wednesday wrap up. I just kind of realized there's no point in me doing it while I'm on vacation. So make sure to do that. Make sure to like, subscribe, share it with your friends on whatever podcast app you listen to. We appreciate anyone that had us in their Spotify wrap as their top 5 podcast. We do appreciate it. So make sure to check out all of that, and we will talk to you again later.